What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fitness Break Room podcast. I'm your host, Sam Pogue. I'm sitting down here in Austin, Texas with two of the most important people in my life, John Wolf and Shane Heins, Chief Fitness Officer of Onnit, Director of Education for Onnit Academy. These guys have been instrumental in my life, and I'm so blessed to be able to share this time with them. And I'm honored that you guys get to listen to their stories and how they've built this, one of the biggest movements in fitness right now, and that's this education course. It's all about inclusivity and community and connecting to people and meeting them where they're at. So before we get into what the Onnit Academy is, I really want to learn about the stories that shaped these guys' character, develop the perspective that they've had, and help influence how they touch the rest of you and give back to the community that's been so influential in thetheir lives. Thanks, guys, for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Super cool to finally come down and watch this come full circle and go from, being a punk-ass little kid to somewhat of a punk-ass middle-aged adult and growing up a little bit. And now we've all kind of stepped away from our previous roles and into the new evolution of what we're going to become.
And likewise, it's kind of cool seeing a lot of things come full circle, right? So both of us being there as you started Fitness Break Room and seeing you put in the work over the course of the last 2 years or so, evolve from a vision to the storyboard I got to see put up on the wall to finally making it here on the podcast. Like, I feel like it's come full circle. I've made it today.
Yeah.
Today.
I mean, this is pretty much the pinnacle of your life.
Yeah, man.
I know you just had a son, but I mean, let's go ahead and make sure we know that this is the best it could have gotten for you.
This is pretty good.
Yeah. So let's give people a rundown. Let's go with, how did you two meet? And then we'll backtrack into each of your stories into fitness and why this has been such a powerful journey for you guys. And then we'll get into Onnit and then what Onnit Academy has become. So whoever wants to start in that journey.
Well, I think something that, not to jump that sequence, but both of us, fitness being a very important part of our lives, just our personal lives, and that turning into what it became as a profession and being able to help it serve other people. For John and I, we ended up, and we tell this story actually in the certifications, primarily in the foundations one when we're teaching that one, that the importance, we talk about at the beginning of the course, the importance of everyone taking the opportunity to connect and at the beginning of the course. Because you go through these 2-day courses, you start to warm up, and then the ice is finally broken. And by Sunday afternoon, you're going, oh man, I'm meeting all these amazing people. This is awesome. And it's over in an hour. Like, what? It feels like we're just getting started. So we always set that up at the beginning of the course where we say, start now on Saturday morning and get to know each other, get to connect, get a sense of who you are and what you're doing and what is your story and what is your mission and your vision. And maybe if there's a resonance there, then that connection can continue to grow beyond this. Because for John and I, that is how we got to where we are today. We were both in fitness personally and starting to get into it more professionally, and went to a fitness certification course. And we had started to connect a little bit before online, actually, because we were associated with a similar fitness approach and community that was growing and learning. And we were going in, and we did a 2-day course and connected immediately and just resonated more so from a character standpoint. Like, it didn't matter what he knew or who he knew and what I knew or who I knew. It was the fact that in connecting as we were going through the weekend, there was a commonality in what we were wanting to achieve. And by achieve, it wasn't a particular outcome, but rather how we wanted to live our lives, and that a big part of that was to be able to serve and help uplift other people. So that's where it started for us. It was around 12 years ago.
It was 2007.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time, and I think that's really it's kind of a trippy thing to hear Shane say, like, oh, we attracted each other we attracted like energy into our lives, and we happen to share space. So there was a commonality in the choice to go somewhere to reap value from something that we subscribe to, right? And then while we were there, even amongst a subset of the population that's relatively, select few people that have raised their hand to say, like, I'm going to go better myself. Even in that group, to find somebody like, whoa, there's something, I can't really define it. Because some of the things that Shane was saying, I could feel it, but I didn't know, like, hey, we actually do have these common threads, we could observe it in the way that we spoke or even from across the room. Cause I think the first certification we did, we didn't really like hang out that much when we were there. It was before, and then towards the end again, like it was a 3-day course.
Mhm.
So I think it was like the third day we were like hung out the whole day, but the way that we interacted within the groups that we were in, and then the way that we spoke when we were in front of the room. And to be honest, as Shane said, wasn't like who we knew or what we knew. Cause to be honest, I was barely scratching the surface of what it was, what has been my educational experience. And I didn't know anybody. I was just there really kind of for my second round through that education course. And I was rebounding from taking it one time when it was at its inception and doing a pretty good job relative to everybody there, coming back, and the course had evolved and I kind of regressed and got my ass handed to me. And so then I came back the third time, and then that's when I met Shane. I'm like, oh, this dude's already on the path, and I had to course correct. So it was actually, I think, really easy for me to recognize in him a mirror, a counterpoint of somebody that I was like, oh, like, okay, I could see he's doing it the right way,
Yeah. What was the landscape of continuing education back in 2007? Because Facebook wasn't what it is now with all the Facebook groups and different pages and all these ways to connect with different communities digitally. And education wasn't at a level where there's a course every 2 weeks. Like, it was a pretty different landscape of education in the fitness market then. What was that like, finding each other like through before the course and then meeting there? Because there wasn't this like, look at me, let me take a selfie just to show that I'm there. You had to actually go and connect with someone, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it was interesting because that was relatively early in my journey of pursuing education as well, formally, and I had done all of my learning from a distance, and primarily because I was living and am from Canada. And so being in Canada, the access to that information, even then, was even more rare than it is now. It's not as big a market and a draw for people to go, but I was going through and even just getting online videos. I had to order the DVDs instead. And originally what kind of triggered a little bit of a path was an article in Muscle Magazine, I think it was, with Pavel Tsatsouline doing one-arm push-ups and kettlebell single leg squats with the Marines. And there was something about that had triggered, and I had saved that article, and then a few years later I'd picked it up. So then I was able to find his books in the library. There's a thing called the library. And
the Dewey Decimal System.
They still have those?
and so, yeah, I actually got the books from the library, would learn from those, and would keep rechecking it out. And what was interesting was that there was never any additional hold. Like, I had to bring it back because somebody else was going to take it because nobody else was doing it. So there was some stuff there. But the first time when I had decided to take a course was right after I had decided to step from being a fitness enthusiast into a fitness professional. I was like, all right, well, I better go and actually start learning this from other people. And I did a course in Vegas, and it was called The Boys Are Back in Town. And it was all of the head coaches or master coaches from RKC who were getting together to do something. And this particular system, I happened to hear a reference for the circular strength training system and the name Scott Sonnen, which was the system that we were continuing to go and learn with. But that's how that happened. There was no social media. Even having efficient websites that you could navigate and find that info wasn't as common, and it wasn't as easy. And so, yeah, for me getting there, it ended up being, an article in a magazine, using the library, ordering a DVD, going to a course, hearing one name from another person, and eventually finding my way. And for me was a major injury. And it was a major injury that actually tipped the scale for my finally going in and diving in down that path that led us into the same space as we were going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were going through these courses, did you ever think that you would be in the front of the room teaching your own, or was it like, I'm just trying to acquire knowledge and go train clients? Like, what was that looking like for you guys?
Well, I'll hit that in a second, but while Shane was at the library, researching with microfiche. You know what that is? That's like when like old newspaper clippings that like get converted to film, and you may have seen it in a movie or something like that from the 80s. So that's how Shane was doing
things. It's the thing that let you actually zoom in and zoom
out
out without being able to use your fingers.
There was no pinch and grab.
These kids are like, what the fuck are these guys talking about?
Look it up, microfiche. Yeah. So while Shane was doing that, and it's funny, he's talking about the boys are back in town. I remember that event in Las Vegas. I didn't go, but my journey with those same people started in 2003. A couple of years before you jumped on in that course, because at that point in time, the boys are back in town was because they had left the RKC and they started doing their own things. But I was at 2003, my first time at the Circular Strength Training Seminar, and the RKC was in the month of September 2003, and yeah, it was like VHS tapes, not DVDs, and bound books, which I had all of Pavel's books because I, like you, found him in a magazine, but it was Muscle Media 2000, and he was like a contributing author, and they've aggregated that into a book, a bunch of the articles. It was freaking awesome. It was a good series of articles. In any case, all those guys, Maxwell, Martone, Cotter, who else was there?
Mahler.
Mike Mahler. Yeah, they were all there teaching at the RKC I was at. So it was kind of like the boys are back. The boys just got there, and then the boys are back, right? Because it was like the 4th or 5th RKC. In any case, as time had gone on, I had a great performance in both of those courses the first time because I'd really dedicated to it. And like Shane, I not an injury of physical nature, but an injury of spiritual and mental nature. I severely depressed and found myself 130-pound, methamphetamine addict. So I was injuring myself, right? So, but the recovery, we both found fitness as a means to recover from a physical trauma, mental and emotional trauma, and then that was the path. So at that point, I was peaked. I was like training 3 hours a day just because I just was so fixated on the uptick that I experienced, right? And so then really great performance 2003, subpar performance 2005, came in 2007 and just crushed. And I saw this guy for his first, and he was just crushing, right? And no, I think at that time I hadn't even imagined being in front of the room and teaching, right? And the next course I brought I came to, I brought 2 of my employees because I started a small training studio in Salinas, California. It's in Monterey County. It's the lettuce capital of the world.
Ooh.
But they also have great wine, and Big Sur, Pebble Beach are all in Monterey County. It's a beautiful place, but Salinas itself is an agricultural center, and that's where I could afford to open up a gym.
Really what it came down.
That's really what it was. I should have done it in Monterey, but then it would have been a closet. In any case, I brought 2 of my coaches who were 2 of my closest friends at the time with me that I had trained for the year since the time that I was with Shane. Actually preceding that, even I was like training them to get ready to coach. And then I wanted them to come and see like how well they were prepared to perform. I wanted them to have a good showing and really boost their confidence. And by that point, we had become notoriously the wolf pack, right? And so it was like all of a sudden, then it was really clearly highlighted. Okay, well, get your team together, get your dream together, right? Like this is what leadership looks like. You develop people, and then you come and they speak. Their performance speaks for you, because as a coach, you being able to do something is cool because leading from the front is important. But until somebody else can do it, it really doesn't mean that much. You mean less than the outcomes you create, right? If you're truly a parent, a coach, a mentor, you achieving is good for marketing, but other people achieving is the best marketing. And so at that point in time was the first time, and that was probably 2008. I remember opening my public boot camp. Actually, before 2007, it was not a studio, it was my garage. In 2008, it was a public boot camp. And later in that 2008 year was when I brought the team. And then we opened up a collaborative studio with another business owner amazing people, Frank and Stephanie Knapp. They're out in Colorado now. You met them.
Yeah, super sweet people.
Yeah, really
Beautiful
sweet.
souls,
I need to hit
amazing
them up.
people. And we shared a space of 4,000 square foot space for a year and a half together. But in any case, that was the first time I realized like, oh, I might have something to contribute in a meaningful way. A couple of years later, 2009 was that when we were in SoCal teaching head coach certification?
Oh, head coach. Yeah, it was
2010. So just a couple of years later, Shane and I are ascending in this organization. And it was a really interesting thing because we were being mentored by some pretty amazing coaches. And it was like, okay, we're going to go and we're going to just perform our asses off for 5 days straight. Right.
Oh my God.
It was a brutal like marathon of gut checks and leading from the front as a higher level certification within an organization. You had to do everything really well, but you also had to make it look, it was a performance, man.
Yeah.
You're performing to inspire the confidence of those that are following you. And that's something that Shane and I really, really love doing. Crying inside and just dead face breathing on the outside. And so, but what the first time it really got me sweating wasn't just the physical challenge. It was that day we went off and did our physical tests as a group, all the higher level certifications. Shane and I just went outside and we crushed. We were like, yeah, okay, we got that done. We took a picture. Remember that?
Yeah.
I think we'll post that.
Yeah.
And then right after we're done, like, oh yeah, you guys are done already? Oh, awesome. Okay. We got these guys broken up into these groups. There's all these instructors, candidates broken up into groups. Okay, John, you're going to go teach the mobility section over there. Shane, you're going to go teach over here. Like, what? Wait, what? We're pouring sweat, drips of sweat everywhere in every crevice. And thankfully, I think the preparation we had done leading up to that point really allowed us to shine.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't know, I've called on you in similar ways, right? Like, the best you might perform is when you've had plenty of opportunity to develop a perspective, to get your reps in, and then to have to because someone called on you in an unexpected way, And so that's, if I had to think about it for 3 months before, I think I might have chickened out.
Yeah.
But just literally got tested
Yeah.
of the real. So that was kind of my experience on that question. I don't know. That was a long
That's
answer.
great.
Sorry.
But I think, one of the things that, again, ties back to the thing that attracted us to each other on the first time around and recognizing, oh, what is this person doing? And like John said, we hadn't necessarily interacted a whole ton, but it was what we were seeing exemplified through the action, how we were interacting with everybody and really connecting and going, hey, there's something really genuine here. And that's a big part too, is the genuineness and sincerity behind what it was that was how it was being done. And so, this idea of, for us, I think the big vision, we're both very big vision people. And as big vision, it's not always necessarily very clear. Like John said, it's like going in, it's like I had the feeling. It wasn't exactly clear exactly what the thing was, but, and we're both very much like that. I'm a very feeling person. And for us, I think the vision.
My hands are down here.
Can't show you what Sam's hands are doing.
We'll give you an inside look.
Still tied to this big vision in terms of wanting to serve in the greatest way that we can, wanting to make the greatest impact that we can. Not necessarily totally knowing how that would manifest itself, but being open to what that could be. And so every step early on in that process for us together going through that, because we were both learning and growing together in that capacity, was the connection to genuinely wanting to make an impact through service to empower other people. Whether we were in the front of the room or we were in the back. And actually, even within that subset of the community, what ended up happening was we were affectionately referred to as the twins. For those of you guys watching this on video.
Like Danny DeVito and Arnold?
Yes.
And
Okay.
and we will let you decide which one is Danny and which one is Arnold. Maybe a bit of both in both of us.
There you go.
And so, but this idea of, it was the twins, and so diametrically different physically, and yet it was because what people were seeing was what we were expressing and what we were sharing, and the genuine desire to be of service. So we didn't care if we were just with one person in the back corner. We didn't care if we were with a small group off to the side, or whether we were in front of the room. It was, we want to be of service, and if we can contribute, and obviously always working towards reaching the potential of our capacity. And what does that look like? And being blessed along the way to I think have the support of each other. We talk about that all the time, and we live in a day and age, just like you said, we don't, Facebook wasn't the same as it is now, and Instagram and all these different ways in which we connect and communicate. Even texting was not a huge way of communicating. It was still email. And so funny to talk about email as being old, but
you've got mail,
right? But that idea of staying connected, we talk about that now with everyone who comes through our courses, is it does not work being on an island or being alone or thinking, and the thing is that people are in a time and place where they are set up, where they have everything, like so many more resources to not have to be. And so having that connection, we've known each other for 12 years, and that journey has evolved from that initial stage over the years to where we are. And yet having the connection has always been there, and always being able to support each other in being able to continue to drive the greater vision in supporting other people. So I think as a through line, that's been an anchor for us all the way.
Yeah. I hope to obviously always honor our relationship and my time with you guys, in that this course was a personal development course, and it shaped me as a man, as a person, as a coach going forward. But, for everybody else looking at what this becomes, I don't think until they meet you guys, they're going to realize that your ability to be empathetic and connect and share this knowledge through fitness as a delivery device, showing in this podcast, you'll see it's not just about fitness or clubs or maces or movement or squats, but it's been about developing a character and who you are and how you communicate. And what I love most about both of you is that character and that story was shaped by your guys' past, and they're very unique. Can you guys share a little bit about your early past before fitness and how that kind of shaped who you are? And I think that'll give people a lot of context as to why the Onnit Academy system is the way it is, because I think those are very powerful stories. Sure.
Yeah. For me, I think as it pertains to anything movement, fitness, physical culture related, you talked about empathy. I'm a super nurturing, huggy, for the most part, person. My two love languages are physical touch and words of affirmation. So hug me and tell me I'm nice or something. I don't know. But in any case, super sensitive kid. I grew up in the hood, so my parents put me in martial arts because they didn't want me to get beat up. They're showing up without my toys, and I didn't even want to fight for the toys because it didn't really matter. I was just it was kind of sad. My toy got taken away. My dad didn't like that too much, so it was you gotta fight for your stuff, or I'm gonna whoop you when you get home. Oh man, I'll probably take less of an ass whooping if I fight in the street than if I come home. But I don't know how to fight. I just hug them until they give me my toy back. And so they put me in a martial arts class, and man, that really shaped me because there were bylaws. We talked about character. You talk about the way that we carry ourselves through life. And I have to be honest, without the foundational understanding, my father was a great influence. He's an honorable man, but he didn't teach me a framework for me to be supported in me making better decisions before him having a conversation retroactively about something I've done, right? Whereas the martial arts school, you literally recited bylaws, and you had meditation before you had performance, and you had rules of engagement with various different sports. It was an aggregate of boxing, judo, jiu-jitsu, and karate. So if you talk about now, that sounds very common, mixed martial arts.
Totally.
Yeah, but no, there weren't any mixed martial arts, and it was a mix of traditional Japanese, Okinawan, Chinese, Western boxing methodologies, jiu-jitsu and judo. Man, I love throwing people on their head. It was freaking awesome. But it was really, the theme there was building character the constant strive to better oneself mentally, physically, spiritually, right? So and through a subset of values like integrity, diligence, right? There was no I can't in the dojo, right? That there's no way that you get away with not doing your best. And it was something that as I grew older and I realized I had fallen away from living a life in those values when I became, depressed and addicted. And I had to reflect on what it was that made me feel the strongest, made me feel the most complete. And it was the experience of my childhood in the dojo and the love my sensei provided as a father figure. He was literally a second father in many ways, and so I wanted to reflect on that. I went back to the dojo. I went and I paid homage to that experience. I reflected on what it was that were the integral parts of empowerment that I was able to have. It was a physical culture experience. So I got back into working out, but it was more like, okay, I'm going to get a conventional fitness certification. Went and trained with I recognized him at the time, bodybuilder that was teaching the course, but man, he was not feeling good, and then I would go to the gym and I passed the course, and then I would go to the gym and I see people that are working out and they're like doing the same exact workout for like the last 5-10 years. And they're not feeling any better than they were yesterday. Actually, they're actually probably in a steady state of decline because of this kind of dogmatic and they buy into something that was good and they can't recognize it's not necessarily serving them any longer. It doesn't mean it was bad. It just means that some things may need to change. And without that recognition, without a framework to validate why and how, it was really something that I was really having a hard time with. So I looked back at, the martial arts also taught me in that school, it was this aggregation of a variety of different strategies. Like, you hear like you box a wrestler, you wrestle a boxer. Well, I could do both. I could throw you on your head and then I could punch you. So, but what determined that was if you're a better grappler, then I want to punch you or kick you in the face. And if you're a better grappler, puncher, a striker, then I want to throw you on your head and hold you down and make sure you can't punch and kick me. Right. So I wasn't the greatest at either, but I was highly effective. And that really made me think, like, what about fitness? Can't fitness live in that same way? Does it have to be jujitsu versus boxing? Why can't you box and do jujitsu? Well, MMA kind of proved that point. And so our fitness system is an integral system that allows you to use whatever tools you bring to the table and a variety of unconventional tools that we teach within our system, right? But we all say good information can't displace good information. It's just about having enough perspective, the framework, right, to understand when to apply what strategy to get the best outcome. Yeah. And that really, for me, came a lot through the martial arts, came a lot through hitting rock bottom and reclaiming the power and the strength and the tools that were in the martial arts that now filter through our system as well as part of the personal development aspect of the system, because our physical fitness system, the education, is about having a better relationship with self, having guidelines for how and why you would act in accordance with serving yourself and others. You have to be able to take care of yourself to serve others and be in a position of service. So you call it fit to serve, right? Fit for service. And then hopefully, empower people to do the same, like pass it on, pay it forward. So it's that's kind of the gist, the short version. Yeah. We could talk about a lot of interesting things that happen along the way, but I don't think that's really for this podcast.
I think that's so unique though. Like maybe because martial arts, especially before MMA, was a very dogmatic realm. Like you do traditional karate, you do traditional Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And if it's not, and that was an amalgamation, did he get a lot of heat for that?
Yeah, it was not. It's funny. He was a U.S. Army combatives, hand-to-hand combatives instructor at Fort Ord, which was an infantry. Fort Ord was a big infantry facility. It closed when I was in high school. Totally devastated the Monterey County's infrastructure and economy. But that's when I was there. Was my grandfather and all these people had retired there, and he had this notoriety of starting this dojo where all these rough kids ended up going, and they learned to be disciplined. They also learned to be very effective combatants.
The cops are
Sometimes,
like,
yeah, like,
please let go.
yeah, but none of us would mess with Sensei at all. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh, yeah.
he was a father figure to all, and we'd all honored him and wanted to do our best.
Yeah.
Many of us had fallen along the way, you know, but yeah, he. The funny thing was, he was so effective, and it was such a non-traditional. I mean, all martial arts are kind of amalgamations of other martial arts in the past, but like you had said, the fact that it was a striking and grappling and joint lock and boxing, you know, like, and you know, all these things tied together and from different cultures, not lineages of like Chinese martial art and then Japanese martial art and then Western boxing. It was, I think it was a really tough time, but he had actually successfully gotten that martial art recognized by the governing association of martial art, the world governance of martial arts. And so Bojuka was recognized as a valid martial art of its own, which was really quite an accomplishment. So like you said, like, we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? So my accomplishments are only a result of my exposure to somebody who did the hard work, you know, who did the hard work and allowed me a platform to recognize, like, man, you know, there's no way without me being in that dojo and going through that experience to realize, like, I did get in trouble a couple of times at tournaments because in the dojo, if you threw somebody on the ground, you could punch them, and you can't do that in a judo tournament. So, like, you know, realizing the context, like rules of engagement. So, like, I was empowered with highly effective strategies that I couldn't use at times because it was a controlled environment. Well, you know, all these lessons, all these things, the fact that we had the ability to pivot and do what was most effective, to have a more diverse toolkit and to have a system to apply it, and then to learn how to control myself in different environments to get the outcome that mattered in that environment. All those things I learned in that time, that developmental time, and through him, you know.
What an amazing outlier as to how to formulate thought at such a young age, right? You look at some of the experiences that we're forced into or happen to be given at any given time in our life, and it's like you don't realize the impact that that environment or that culture is going to have on you later. And I find that so fascinating now that it has come so full fold. Yep, for you guys to see it now in this major big business. I mean, at the end of the day, Onnit's one of the biggest fitness companies on the planet now, and at the momentum that they have, like you couldn't imagine this in 2003 that you'd be working for an organization like this and getting to transcend that message that you got to experience at such a young age, and something that obviously changed your life and being able to share with all these others. I think that's such a cool way to have developed that perspective. And now it is what it is now, and it's this massive sharing platform for people to connect, and obviously led you guys to get connected and have similar kind of stories in your background. And I think that's so cool that you guys get to share that.
Yeah, I guess a big part of what feeds into my background and how that feeds into where we are today, and what comes behind the message when sharing. When I was 5 years old, my family moved from southern Canada up to, which I know for a lot of people, southern Canada is like Canada. Way up north.
It's like Game of Thrones, like the southern north of the wall.
The south side of the Canada.
But yeah, growing up in southern Canada, and at about 5 years old, my family moved to northern Canada, and that is up by the Arctic Circle. A place where it does get very cold, a place where in the wintertime it is dark most of the time, and in the summertime it's light most of the time. And when we moved there, the reason behind why we moved there, my family are Baha'is, and as members of the Baha'i faith, its primary principle revolves around unity and the unity of mankind. The oneness of God, the oneness of religion, the oneness of man, and recognizing the through lines and the value of all of it. And so something that Baha'is will do is, and have done, is do what we refer to as pioneering. And that's just going to a place where maybe the message of the Baha'i faith hasn't been heard or hasn't been shared. It's different in that from other focuses of trying to convert people. It's actually more just about sharing. And then if the message resonates, then you're there to be a resource. And so we went there. And so I've, even at that young age, growing up and thinking about this, oh, we're one, we're all part of the same family as human beings. And that's the human family. And so where we moved to was a small community of 750 people. It is a fly in, fly out community, except for in the wintertime for a couple months when the lakes and rivers freeze over and then they plow a road. So for all of you guys that are familiar with what is it?
Ice
Road
road
truckers. Yeah, that's a real thing. And every time I tell that, they're like, wait, you mean ice road truckers is a real thing? I was like, yeah, that was normal. That was normal. That was how we got like our dry goods for the year. Was the trucks would come up
The year.
for the year, and the stores would get it in. We had 2 stores, and my dad got a job as the general manager for the co-op store, but individuals could also put in orders that would come in on these trucks, and then you could stash your stuff for the year. And when I was an adult and I thought about what it took for my mom to create a year-long meal plan for us to eat as well as we did, it still kind of blows my mind. But so we'd moved to this community, and this community was a Native community. So depending on where you're from, Native Indian, First Nations, it's the Dene. And the community itself in the region that they were, the North Slavey of the Dene. And the Dene is a large family. And we are at the northern end of the Dene family. And something that is associated with people, especially here in the southern United States, are the Navajo. And the Navajo are part of that same family down on the south side that travels all the way up through North America. And so we moved there, and that was a very unique experience. Now, what was interesting going in as, for lack of a better term, a white person, and our family being white and being amongst the only white people there. Usually the only white people there were the manager of the store, the teachers, some of the teachers, and a couple of nurses, because there were no doctors or dentists or anything. You had a couple nurses that were on hand there. And rough and tough. Those are some other stories. The nurses, the stuff that they would have to deal with was pretty intense. But going through, and so living there, and I was super excited. And I think even at a young age, there was a connection with the outdoors, with having space, with just kind of being out in the middle of nowhere that I gravitated to immediately. And I think a part of it in having all that space is the expansiveness of it. And that's something that's translated into anything that I do or I approach. It's the expansive possibilities of what we can create and what we can bring and what we can do. And so, but going in with this thought of, we're all one human family and unity, I then came face to face with a massive trial by fire for years. And that was being white, I was representative of a group of people that had heaped injustice on the group of people who I was living amongst. And so I was exposed to racism and prejudice, even just being of a different religion, because the majority there were Catholic, just being a different religion.
As a kid.
And I was 5 years old going on 6. And also that, the injustices of pulling kids from these communities into residential schools, being forced not to be able to speak their languages, being forced not to be able to connect, even just have the connectivity to their families. They were taken away and they didn't have their parents, they didn't have their siblings. And that, this idea of unity and a concept that I've grown up with in terms of unity is this idea that, well, if we think about the unity of the world, the unity of the world really comes first from having unity between countries. And the unity of countries will really only come about if we have the unity amongst provinces and states. And the unity of those provinces and states won't happen until you have the unity between the cities and towns. And the unity in the cities and towns won't happen until you have unity of the families. And so I got brought into this experience where the fabric of the foundational fabric of what it means to be unified was torn apart for a lot of the people in this community and many other Native communities. And so that's a lot to, a lot of this is obviously in reflection. And as we talked about earlier, I'm way more feel first, and then I figure the stuff out as we go. So as a 5-year-old going in, I don't fully comprehend the pieces and what that all does, but I definitely felt it. And I felt it from every age. So there were the kids that were my age, there were the kids that were older than me, and I felt it from even the adults, that there were times and experiences in grade 1. I was going in and I would have my homework done, and the teacher taking my homework and folding it up, ripping it, and putting it in the garbage. And my going home and not knowing how to explain this to my mom. And so going through that, I did have the benefit of having a solid family unit. And I know that was the difference of my being able to then day in and day out go and experience, because that, the prejudice and the racism and the name calling and being told every single day, you are absolute crap. You are no good. You do not belong here. You have no right. We are way better than you are. Every day. And it wasn't just mental and emotional, it was physical. I was getting beat up all the time. It was funny because in high school, the school only went up to grade 9, and I went to high school in another community. And when we went there my first year, I tried out for all these sports because I didn't have, a lack of options, because there were definitely lack of options in the town. There was only so much we could do. Hockey was one of the things that we did do, but I had all these access to basketball and soccer and track and field and all this other stuff. And when I joined track and field and cross country running, my coach was like, "You're a really good runner." I was like, "Thanks." He's like, "Do you have a lot of experience running?" And I laughed, and he didn't know what I was laughing about, but I was like, "Yeah, you could say that." 9 years of running, lots of running. And, like spatial awareness. I used to have to face off against firing lines of rocks because we had plenty, it was gravel roads. So you would get rocks, and I learned very early on, you don't turn around and run away from a firing line of rocks. You turn and you face the firing line of rocks, and you walk yourself backwards as you watch the rocks so that you can avoid them as they come at you. And so even the experience of having to face intense difficulties rather than turning my back and going the opposite way was actually forcing me to have to turn and face it while I then navigated how I then get out of the intensity of that situation. And so going through that experience, and the fights, funny enough, the fights I never had one-on-one. They were always groups. It was pile on. My first one-on-one fight, because I remember it, I was 12 years old. And that was only because one of the other older guys had some sense of fairness and had authority and an influence over a lot of the kids that were there. And he said, "Everybody back off. It's between these two guys." And so that was one thing that was interesting turning point for me. But facing all of these things, it would have been really easy for me to be, "Oh, woe is me," and to be a victim. And there's a difference between being the victim of something, and then there's the difference in between that and then being a victim, and how that correlates in your head and how you take that in. And it didn't take very long for me going through that experience that, and I would come home and, man, I would be upset. We would have holes in our walls, much to the chagrin of my mom and dad, but I didn't have a lot of other spaces to be able to express that anger. There wasn't a lot of rage per se, but just a lot of anger, because all I was trying to do was be friends, right? And to live up to this message of we're all one human family. And the other thing that I could have done was I could have been a victim And I also could have turned around and I could have directed my anger towards the people who were expressing all of these things towards me. Except that the difference was that, and I knew this very early on, because I could feel it. When I go home, I was going home to a safe space. I was going home to people who had the tools and the means to express love. And I was going home to a space where I wasn't going to get beat up by the people who were supposed to be my protectors. I wasn't going in and I wasn't going to be sexually assaulted by the people who were supposed to be my family and protect me from atrocities such as that. And so I was looking at, these kids that when they go home, they were still facing the intensity of what this chain of events over the course of a history for these people has been. And I couldn't even then, if I thought about that and going, man, then it's the adults that are doing this to the kids. I'm like, no, because they were kids once who were also experiencing these things. And so that, I think, as a kid, had me develop a degree of empathy that I couldn't have the same without having gone through that experience. And so having that put on me, but recognizing that what was also being put on the ones that were perpetrating the actions was that it was being able to be in a space of empathy. And even for those when you're going, someone's doing something that is like, well, that's just wrong and that's just not right. And it's going, okay, but where are they coming from? Again, that feeds back into our backgrounds and tying into how we teach these courses. What is the context? Is it purely black and white, right and wrong? Well, there are things wrong, we say generally wrong is when we're doing anything knowingly to hurt or break someone down. But being able to even recognize what is the context behind why is that even going on? And so having that experience growing up, that developed an immense amount of empathy for where people are coming from and an immense amount of patience and endurance, mental and emotional. And because then as I continued to grow and as we continued to grow into my teenage years and whatnot, I then saw the impact of that continuing to carry over into the adult lives of the people that I had around me. And I have lost friends to alcohol, and both in having their lives taken by someone else and the taking of their own. And that is like so hard for anybody. And I know that it's funny because when you have that experience, it can be really easy to feel like, man, you feel like you're the only one who goes through that. And yet so many of us go through that. And whether it is ourselves going through that journey and being on the precipice of stepping across the line where we are no longer in this life, or having those around us experiencing that. And even if I have never experienced myself being on that precipice and questioning whether I want to make that choice or not, there is still deep down, is like, did I do enough? Could I have done more as a friend? And needing to find harmony with that. And so just these really deep-seated reflections and experiences that have forced me to have to look at where are we all coming from and what does it take and what can we do to help lead us to something where we actually feel more hopeful, where we actually feel like we want to connect with other people, where we want to give to other people, where we want to empower. And that story can kind of have a little bit of I know when the telling, it can seem rather bleak, but then at the exact same time, I have received some of the, along with those being the gifts, some of the most other amazing gifts by being a part of that community. And and everyone from that community knows how much I love them.
Mhm.
And I know that they love me in return. And as the years went on, my relationship changed. And it changed from being an outsider and having faced all of these things to being a part of the community,
Wow.
to being recognized as, wow, you're one of us and you have gone on to do good things to help other people. And that's all we want to be able to do as well. And there was this one of the greatest things, and I think these are some of the things that come from the native culture in general and Aboriginal cultures around the world, is just this sense of connectivity with this a greater spirit, a greater something beyond ourselves. And that was something that was common amongst us. So I had a strong sense in God, and there was a strong sense in God, strong sense of a greater spirit, a greater universe, a greater connectivity between all things. This community had that same connectivity and that same sense. And actually, it is because of that that they have continued to move through a process of healing themselves. The drum, if there is any music that ever just resonates with me, it is the drum. And we would have drum dances, and that was one of the most amazing things, because it was the one time when the hostility would tend to calm itself down and everyone could be connected around coming together for feeding the soul, feeding the greater spirit. And we were allowed to be there, and I could participate in the dance, and that's all I wanted to do. And when I was younger, I didn't know that there was a certain protocol around it. You know, I'm just coming and I see people dancing and we go. And at the time, it became less so over time, but it was still quite traditional when I was young, where an elder would start the dance. So an elder would go in the circle, and the drum dances, we'd have anywhere between 6 to 8, 5 to 8 drummers in a quarter circle, and they're drumming away, and then everyone starts dancing in a circle. And there are a few different dance types as you go up, but an elder would usually start it. And there was this one point in this drum dance, and I was 6 going on 7, and I was just sitting there antsy, and I just wanted to dance again, and no one was going up. And I just thought, all right, I'm going to do it. And I got up and I just started dancing in front of all these people who, on a more regular day-to-day basis, would have, you're not good enough, you're less than us, all these things. But the drum overpowered that. The message to spirit and connection overpowered that. And it wasn't something that I was bringing, it was something that they were giving me through that. And so I got up and I started drumming or dancing, and I'm looking around and no one else is getting up. And I'm almost one full circle through, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't be up here. And I look over, and there are these elders, these old ladies who are sitting there, and they've got this little grin on their face, and this one just looks at me, and as she can see me start to hesitate, she just smiles and nods and just like does a little keep going without saying anything. And my heart was on and my heart and soul were on fire. And I just kept dancing, and I really am always so thankful and grateful for the drummers, because they kept drumming. They didn't go, oh, no one's getting up, it's just the white kid, we're gonna stop. They kept drumming, and I danced. And so there are all these elements that I got so much out of this experience that still are a part of me today and are a part of what feed me today. And so going through that experience, really looking at, again, just like we teach in the courses, it's context. It's, well, these two things can seem so diametrically opposed, and yet there is a common universal truth in them. What can we draw from them and find the integration between both? And so for me, that was a really big thing that that came through, and I think is a major reason behind why I want to be of service, because and like you said earlier, I think for us, we are movers and fitness is a passion, but it was a path that opened up and made apparent that it could be a vehicle for us to help people. And so way more than fitness itself, it's the vehicle for us to contribute and be of service to empowering other people so that we can, we know people are going through difficulties and challenges. We've both experienced them. You've experienced them. Most of us have to whatever degree. And whatever those challenges are, movement is, I think, something that from a physicality is something that is grounding. And I think John and I talk about that all the time in terms of, and why fitness is such a great vehicle and why being able to move is so empowering for people, because yes, we can do so much to transform from our mind, and we can do so much from doing emotional work and spiritual work and all of those components. Those on the initial steps can also be really hard. They can be really challenging to grab a hold of, because so much of it is ethereal, so much of it is not tangible in a physical sense. I love the saying that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience.
I like that.
And that as a human experience, part of this experience in this life is we are physical. There is a physical reality to how our soul is traveling to this part in this part of our journey. And so the spiritual and the mental and emotional, those, yes, are absolutely powerful, and in the end are more important in a sense in the big picture, long term, than this physical body. But in this experience and what we're going through, this physical body is the vehicle that allows us to express those things more and to be a platform to develop more. And so if we can help people, because we've experienced this, where the physicality, and that was a big part of my getting through those experiences when I was young, that was another gift. I was in the middle of nowhere in wilderness. I walked 15 minutes in any direction. There's nobody but moose, bears, wolverines, caribou, fish, like nothing out there but me and the interconnectivity of the greater universe and creation. And so having that, I moved. I was hiking, always hiking through knee-deep snow. I was going off elsewhere, being really physical, building small lean-to shelters, taking trees down. But that physicality helped me process what I was going through. Even in the experience of the physical part of those challenges, I ran. And the running really helped because it got me out of some of those scenarios and fed into my being actually really good at something later on down the road. But that physical expression, that being able to manifest, and I think for me, a part of what was a really big element of fitness was being physically strong, because I was put in an environment where I was being told I was weak and facing odds that kept making me feel like I was weak. And so I had to keep finding a way to feel strong in those scenarios. And if we think about total human optimization, that's all the pieces, including physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And so physical as a vehicle, I've always known, all right, well, if I'm trying to work through an issue in my head, that could take me days, could take me weeks, could take me months or years. It's tough to feel what that is and how it needs to work out. And if I'm trying to help someone else go through that process, not that that's not part of the process, I could make someone do one push-up and they feel it. They feel it in that moment, and they feel whether they feel strong in it or not. And instantly, that's a moment of connection that acts as a vehicle for all the other pieces to go through. And that when we move through life, if we can move through life well, relatively pain-free, or being able to bounce back resiliently from those challenges, then it feeds in our ability to do that in ourselves from a total sense. And so, yeah, as I got into high school, like I played hockey as I was transitioning into going to high school. Martial arts was a big one for me as well. And that is a part of what feeds. And I happen to get, I think very much like John, I got spoiled because I had it was Taekwondo. I had an amazing Taekwondo instructor. And right from the get-go, I resonated. And it was funny because when I was younger, I wanted the martial arts. The martial arts was something, we joke about it and we reference it in the chorus, but the Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi, like for me, it was not just Daniel's journey, but it was Mr. Miyagi and what he represented, because that was something that I was wanting in my life as well. And if I could have had that, maybe I could have navigated the physical element a little better earlier on. But the martial arts for me came in when I moved to a place where now I no longer had anyone trying to beat me up. I no longer had anyone telling me that I was weak or I wasn't good enough. In fact, I moved to a community where there were white people, Native people, Métis, which is half white, half Native, like all of us all together. And everyone was just like, yeah, awesome to have you here. That was so different for me. That was a culture shock in and of itself. But being able to be there, I got martial arts when I didn't need it anymore. And so, but it resonated because my teacher spoke to the character. My teacher spoke to the development as a person. And that really, if you have that, then most of the time you're going to dissolve 90% of potential conflict that you have, and you won't even need the physical part. The physical part then served as a vehicle to support the character that we were building. And that really resonated so strongly. And so I think I'll leave it at that. There's a whole bunch more, I guess, that we could go, but that I think is the crux and the through line of that experience that has fed into an approach that I had growing up, and how I wanted to, and how it has served me, and how I wanted to be able to use it as a natural tool and a natural vehicle to be able to contribute and serve in other people's lives. And probably because of that experience, although different and yet same, clicked immediately, because we could feel that immediately between us in how we were interacting with other people.
TrueCoach is the #1 app for coaches who want to train more clients in less time. Their easy-to-use platform humanizes the online coaching experience, so your clients will think you're right there next to them every step of the way. Our goal is to give coaches their time back so that you can go to the seminars you've been dying to take a well-deserved vacation, or even just a day off. Head over to truecoach.co and sign up for a free 2-week trial and use promo code FITNESSBREAKROOM for 25% off your first month. That's so powerful. Thank you guys for sharing those stories, like about your past, because, you know, obviously they're tough to say out loud in a public forum, but I think it gives people so much context to understand what the Onnit Academy system really is. I was blessed that I got to spend 4 years every day with you guys, and I got to feel that, but it really highlights, wow, you know, I think none of us came from a traditional route in fitness by any means, and yet we find ourselves at Onnit in this behemoth of a movement, and it was to build a platform, but the platform wasn't for us to stand on. The platform was to build it for other people to stand on and to give back, because we felt that that was going to be our best way to deliver, and share and connect with people, was to help others along their journey. And obviously everybody has to get to a certain point in their career where they can best help others. And wherever you're at in your life, you can always help someone, but you may not be ready to help every single person based on where you're at. And you got to keep chugging along too, because if you don't keep continually going through new experiences and sharing and giving back, you won't shape perspective that allows you to help the next set of people coming through. And I think Onnit really represents that platform for all of us to be able to deliver, those experiences. And at the end of the day, shared experiences is what shapes community. And it allows us all to have a sense of connection to each other beyond the club or the mace or whatever that might be. Looking at that now, how did you guys even get to Onnit? Because I think everybody's looking at this going, well, if I just go to a seminar and then I go through some shit in my life, I can get to Onnit. Like, wait, I did martial arts. I got my ass kicked as a kid. I did drugs. Like, how am I not on it? Right. But like, it took some shit to get there. Right. And obviously through these messages and through these shared times that you guys had, how did you find yourselves now at the front of the room when you didn't want to be?
I think, it's something that, a lot of these things that we're talking about, obviously they're retrospective, right? So it's like, well, at the time it fucking sucked a lot. At the time, so much sucked. And now all of that can be celebrated, at the time, the things that we shared may have sucked. Like, I had been physically and mentally and emotionally challenged at some of the experiences we got to share that we volunteered to go to. Shane almost killed me in the desert of Las Vegas. I may have ended up with heat stroke, and I don't remember a lot of things. I think there's a hole in my brain or something. I don't know, but now it's something we celebrate.
And it's such a great story that you can share now.
I'll tell you another story about that later. We only got so much time. I guess we got, but that's the thing is like all that. Yeah, we all go through shit. And everybody wanted to be a Ninja Turtle, or everybody wants to be strong in some meaningful way for themselves, right? Capable of protecting themselves, capable of protecting another, capable of changing or righting a wrong, capable of believing that you're in the growth mindset, believing that you can be something you don't feel you currently are, and I think that all those things, that having that mindset and the approach of believing in your potential and believing in walking your path is literally the thing that got us here, right? And that we didn't know that we were going on it, but I kept making choices that no one else was making. So I would implore everybody to not, like, if you truly believe, if you truly feel like resonant with a choice, a path that you're on, it doesn't have to be aligned with the teachings of Onnit, that I would happily support you in that path, because I was the only weird trainer swinging kettlebells in clubs in, I don't know, 100-mile radius in 2002. People would stay the fuck away from me. You know what I mean? If I went to the gym, I brought my own tools, and I would house myself in a power rack to try to keep other people from being in my space and being injured, because they would walk right up to me or run away. They'd call me Tarzan or Caveman, or I was just that guy over there. Yeah, that you want to do some weird shit. That guy over there, go see him. But it was effective, and it was working, and it was working for me. Mm-hmm. If it was working for you, go down your path, right? And that's something you have to truly reflect on. Does it really resonate with you? Is it really working for you? Is it getting you closer to a state of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual enlightenment? Like, are you bettering yourself? And the measure of that is only for you to determine in some cases, right? Because financially and otherwise, I was not healthy. You know what I'm saying? Like, financially, it wasn't netting me a huge return on investment. I was doing all this stuff. I had to educate a market to value mobility and kettlebells, because everybody heard of kettlebells. Some people started using them, and everybody got scared of them because people were getting hurt. Well, it wasn't the kettlebell's fault. It was you and whoever told you to do crazy stuff with the kettlebell's fault, and not to say I don't do crazy stuff with a kettlebell, but it's a process, and I wouldn't have you do crazy stuff with a kettlebell just because I can, So realistically for me, I found myself at the very top of a very, very short list of people when Onnit was looking, because Onnit's on their own path, seeking their own source of enlightenment. Part of that evolved from nutritional supplements to foods to fitness equipment. I don't see how that fits. There's not very many other companies that are doing all these things in aggregate and trying to make it an amalgamation, a total human optimization message, bridging those things. You might have a supplement company who takes pictures of people that are working out, but it's a very vague connection between the two things. There's not a true through line of philosophical belief that is connecting the two. And that's one of the things that's unique about Onnit. And so all the values of Onnit, you may find resonate with the values of Mr. Shane Heins and John Wolf. And Wolf Fitness Systems was my original company, and Onnit and the Onnit Academy is truly Wolf Fitness Systems and Dare to Evolve, which was Shane's company, which is pretty representative of his story that you guys just heard. 2.0, and so, but neither of us were realizing huge financial windfalls. We were realizing huge emotional, mental, spiritual reward and foregone financial reward through the process as we fumbled and fell and picked each other up and hiked through barren desert or tundra or whatever the imaginary representation of challenges in your mind, mountainous terrain without water, whatever the case is, and we did that because there was an inherent belief in what it is that we were doing and the value that we were reaping as individuals and seeing in the people that the few, the proud, right? That were self-selecting to follow us in that journey. And then those people, just like everything else, the early adopters are such a select few. And then there's a cascading effect of belief and buy-in and how the hell did I get here and have this amazing job? And to be able to bring one of my best friends who's also the mirror to keep me honest. There's so many people that have gotten to a point of ascension and then they believe all the hype, can't, you bring a Shane Heins around, no matter how big bad you think you are, you're going to be brought back down to earth. And that's something I thought was really important because I'm only human and you see what other people have done. There's a lot of big egos in this industry and all industries. And the biggest downfall of really amazing people comes from a lack of self-awareness and self-reflection in honesty regarding what our inherent limitations are and being able to do that. So whether that's using unconventional tools or conventional tools or whatever the case is, that really matters. And that's what we're trying to do with our education system, is not say that you can only do the things that we're sharing, but inviting you to bring whatever it is that you already have in your wheelhouse, what you already experience in life and that you value, filter it through these kind of litmus tests, this framework and checks and balances, and then let's see how we can make it even better. So getting to Onnit was through that process, using the stuff that Onnit just happened to develop a line of fitness equipment around. And there weren't very many people who swung kettlebells and clubs and maces and used sandbags and battle ropes and had a holistic approach that really valued optimization of all of these things and how they work together. It was like there's a yoga person and a kettlebell person and a conventional weight training person. And so, when you hear the stories of Shane or myself and now your story as well, right, Sam, that even now, as we heard Shane's story about judgment and racism and prejudice, this is a reflection of our industry not too long ago, where now we're finally getting to this place where Shane talked about getting to this place in high school where you can be more than one thing and it's okay. And thankfully I grew up in Monterey County, which is one of the most culturally diverse places in the world. I'm Mexican, Japanese, and English. There's not very many of us around, and it was, I was weird because I know what a Vietnamese person sounds like and what Vietnamese food tastes like. And I can order food in a Vietnamese restaurant, a Japanese restaurant, Chinese, Filipino, Mexican.
I can too. I just say number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. And that's what's so funny. I speak Korean and you don't, but how those experiences are so different and yet the outcomes are the same. Yeah. And those that land it on it and those that land wherever the shores are that you're going to mine your gold are those that are seeking, so, you're on your journey, you might end up at Onnit. You might end up at the next Onnit. You might be the next Onnit. You might be your own. And, I really am honored to have found a place where I could build the team that we have, to have some of my closest friends in this world be part of a movement, a vision that we share, and that Onnit has provided us a platform to realize it. So you guys, we're talking about fitness, but we're not talking about fitness, right? What are you fit for? Fit for, fit for service, fit for life, fit, so again, the physical manifestation of this is just it's just the vehicle, right? And it's the most easily accessible component of constant improvement, of constantly being better, and we can measure it, right? That's the other thing that makes it really, are you healthier mentally and emotionally? Well, now you can put electrodes on your head and you can wear all these wearables and you see like, oh, my HRV score is better, or, my brain wave, I'm in theta state, oh, I'm very chill right now. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is, how does that manifest in an outcome, in something tangible, in something that can be measured, in something that can change the way that I perceive things, that I can control in this reality and affect change, that's palpable, that I can objectively see and feel and touch, and that other people that I share space with can as well. So that's kind of like a more ethereal example. Mainly it was, I swung kettlebells, clubs, maces, sandbags, battle ropes, and I knew how to do it all together so that it wasn't just one or the other. That was, I guess that's the less deep explanation.
I mean, but it's still the explanation. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like those decisions that you went to, circular strength and RKC and all these different elements. And all of a sudden you had these like just accrued different knowledge bases. And then all of a sudden it was like magically this company comes like, hey, we're looking for someone that does all those things. You're like, well, I guess it's John.
Yeah. I guess spending all my money for the last 5 years doing those things made sense all of a sudden.
Yeah. And then to pick up and move to Austin, Texas from California and sell your business. And now all of a sudden you end up in this behemoth of a culture, I guess you would say, in a gym, and you're now developing all these new employees and building out a system. And I think that's one of the most impressive things is, having come in at the ground level and seeing Onnit go from just kind of being kind of cool to now it's got all these different arms. And at the end of the day, guys, Onnit is filled with a bunch of really talented fucking people.
Super.
You look around the office and it's so interesting now leaving, not that True Coach is not valuable because there's a lot of really smart people there too, but you go from 42 employees to 220 employees. And if you empower all these people to do what they do really, really well, and you get to see them shine in that space, you're like, wow, it is so impressive to see how many people take Onnit and project themselves to the level that they're supposed to be at. And the company's just filled with it. And I think that's what's so cool.
And you're a great example, right? So like, it's just fertile land. Mm-hmm. So, I tell people in our new employee orientation, Onnit is one of the most fertile land. I come from Salinas Valley. It's literally one of the most fertile lands on earth. Okay. You can grow anything there. Good weed too.
Yeah.
And so, wine and grapes and all this is known for all of these amazing things, to be fertile land, and Onnit is literally the most fertile land I've ever experienced in my life. So be careful what you fucking plant here, because it will grow. If you grow envy, jealousy, greed, lust, then that's what's going to grow. If you want to have aspirational, inspirational, optimization, servitude, integrity, honor, you have the utmost opportunities to realize that. And now realize that Onnit isn't a place, Onnit is a belief, and you have that access to you. And hopefully through our community and through the connectivity of now being in a more connected reality, right? The world's a very small place. You can be on it wherever you are. And we're happy to be supportive of that from Austin. You don't have to be in Austin to be part of Onnit,
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that over time, especially within the growth of Onnit and the growth of the fitness side of things, as people came in early, they were thinking, oh, well, if I come in and I get certified, then I get to be the Onnit person. I get to be the one. The floodgates open and they will all, what do we say? Come to me, right? Whereas, going through this process of restructuring people's perspective of what it is that we're bringing through the education of the fitness part of Onnit as a whole, but is that the understanding of, it's not about having to come and be here in the physical location and have to work at this job, because it is the belief in these things. And that, like you had said, it kind of felt like Onnit was a bit of a magic lamp. It was a genie out of a magic lamp, that what we were going through, because at this point, as we're going through, mine and John's stories are very similar, in terms of totally strapped for cash, trying to bring awareness around all these tools that nobody else is working with, and having to do all these things. The slight difference in our business models were he was working with a team and running a gym, and I was trying to build an online business and working through that. But the similarities of what we ended up going through was the same thing. There was a lot of pressure for me. I was raising a family of 3 kids and my wife, and lucky to be supported by her through that process. Not lucky, blessed, and so grateful, because it kept coming back to her. She just kept saying, she's like, I don't know why, but every time I reflect on it, I just have this strong sense that you guys are going to be more successful than you can ever imagine. And so being able to, not that there wasn't still stress, challenges that we had to work through, but that her, again, comes back to what John said, belief. It was a belief that there is something here in what we are doing and the choices that keep being made, even if on the front end, they're not making sense, because they weren't making sense to anybody else around us.
Totally.
And for us, I think in many ways, it wasn't about whether it made sense in the conventional standpoint. It was, all I know is this is what I need to do. That's what makes sense. And so coming in, the idea of Onnit kind of coming out of nowhere and going, hey, we happen to need someone who has all of those skills. And that person having all those skills going, oh, well, for this to grow to the scale to match what Onnit is building into, I need to build a team. I need to draw on people who happen to have those skills. There was a very small subset of people who have that. He's like, I happen to know another person who has that.
Yeah.
And so he was literally traveling across the country to Texas, having gotten this job, calls me up literally a week after I was starting to question whether I should be doing what I was doing anymore in the way that I was doing it, and going, so I have this thing, Onnit. When are you getting down here? Because we've got work to do.
Yeah, I like how it wasn't a question if you were going to move your family to a new country, to Texas from Canada. It was like, when are you coming?
By the way, they're my family too.
Yeah,
I just want to let you know.
It is family,
I was blessed that Shane's wife let her hang out with me. I don't know why she did.
And I think that was something that was also part of what made that transition doable, was that it was this connection and it was this sense of family. And that's what we had that connection for, and then prior to coming, rather than going into cold, like something completely cold, but, being able to come down and do that and going, and the process of, getting myself down here and getting the family down here for us to start doing the work. And so, it feels like Onnit in some ways, in retrospect, kind of like out of nowhere, and happened to need the very skills of the things that we were trying to help other people develop, but we're having to bust through walls, and not just bust through walls, but stand up from the top of cliffs and go, all right, maybe you couldn't hear us from the other side of the wall. Can you hear me now? Can you see? This is great stuff. To, here, let me come around. Oh, there's a door here. Hi. And then they're pulling on the doorknob going, no, too much. I don't. Well, it's just really good. Like, we'd love it. We just want to provide, okay, maybe not that angle. Trying from all kinds of different places. And so for others, and I think for the listeners, here and thinking about going, oh, well, how do I be successful? I need to attach myself to some, really big brand, or the only way I can do it is to be a part of this thing, when that was not our journey at all. Our journey was, oh, we know we need to take the journey, and the path will continue to unveil itself as we take action and follow through with that belief in what it is we are trying to do. And then the opportunity opened and it fit. And for us to be here now and to have shared this experience, you being a part of that and the growth of everything that we're doing is something else. And I think that, again, tying that back into, so yes, Onnit, because we get to be a part of contributing to this bigger thing that has given us the space to do so on a bigger platform, as well as everyone else who has also been a part of it. But it's not the only thing. We don't all have to fight over this one magic lamp and think it's ours. We get to contribute and go, hey, you know what? Rather than rubbing it the one time, getting it the 3 wishes, Getting the three
Yeah, 3 wishes,
wishes.
You have to rub it more than one time to get 3 wishes for me.
to get 3 wishes.
I stepped into that one. I do that from time to time. But you know, it's that we get to perpetually contribute the value of what those things are, giving you benefit so that you can keep growing and keep building. And like John said earlier, whether it's something that you are just creating on your own, or an opportunity with some company does open up and you get to contribute and provide in that way. Or if it ends up being Onnit because that ends up being the fit, whatever it is, take the message of what we're talking about, understand the process of what we're talking about, and that is the greatest, most impactful, powerful thing you can interject or make a part of your life now.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's so crazy to think about what the last 4 years were and how that was a culmination for you guys of the previous 10 years, right? And then to get to experience that piece of it and then look at like, wow, those 4 years are transformative for me, but also like you look at what it was like building that out, you know, and to see it from, okay, it's kind of this thing, but it wasn't kind of a thing, and to watch it grow from an idea to now a movement to where it's like, holy shit, like you get 60 people showing up to a seminar wanting to listen and share that time. And then like to hear the feedback from people at the end when they're like, oh my gosh, I've been searching for someone to be saying this to me. That just spoke to me. Like that's what's so powerful is that little end piece when people are like, wow, that was so much more than I ever would have imagined to get out of something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's success to us in our role, you know. So what is success? So I just wanted to like go back, like, hey, you know, looking back, everything was retrospective. Everything has greater perspective to realize now, you know, maybe Shane and I shared, we're both strapped for cash. Well, what does that mean? What does success back then look like? You supported a family of 5, including yourself. That's success. As a one-man show who's primarily just doing online info products and online coaching, that's pretty damn good. You know, I had, you know, myself, my ex-wife, and my daughter of 7 months before I moved out here. But then I also had a team of 5 people that worked full time for me. And I was honored to be, you know, like humanitarian of the year in my community, you know, things like, oh shoot, actually I look back and I'm like, well, that's pretty successful. The money didn't stack up because I invested it all right back into me and into those people. And, you know, it wasn't that I didn't have abundance. It was that the abundance was allocated to investment. Right. And so, you know, I just wanted to say, like, you know, it may feel like you're not ascending at the rate you think you should. It may feel like you're not going to be on the path, on the trajectory to reach your goal if you define it in a singular metric, if you don't have the perspective to celebrate the victories you're having right now. And the victories come from your failures. Okay. So like, I almost closed my gym a handful of times wondering, am I going to make payroll? And you know what? You just fucking figure it out, because there's a purpose, because there's a reason, and the reason's bigger than $1 and is bigger than you a lot of times. And if not, then do something else. And you know, if you buy into half of the things we're saying, then you're on it, and you can be on it anywhere you're at. You can be on it with us at Onnit. You can be at Onnit and build a freaking brand like the Fitness Break Room. You know, even if you are on it, even if you are part of our team, you are still you, and you are your brand, and you and your message and what you bring to this world are the things that matter most. Because just like Sam said, it's a place where there's all these amazingly talented people. Everyone's an entrepreneur at heart. Everybody owns Onnit because everybody owns that common belief and common philosophy of investing to be a better person, to be a better service, to be a better vehicle for things to be realized. And now, like, you know, there's only so many people that I can pay to be part on it. So please don't come and think that there's this ever, you know, growing pool of opportunity to jump in. We are here to help you build you, because even if you are part on it, that's really, you see someone like a Sam Pogue, huge success story for Onnit and Onnit Academy. You see someone like Primal Swolger or Juan Leja or Christian Placencia Jeremy Hills, who actually he came like really
Leo.
Leo Savage. Like, man, we are a platform for you to do what you're going to do. Okay. Like we are holding the space. We're the tending, the shepherds of the territory. We tend to the flock. We tend to the land. It's a lot of work. Okay. And we do it so that you guys can do what those people are doing and are going to do. Not so you have to be our employees. Because Sam will tell you, working for me isn't always very fun. But yeah, just wanted to make sure we say that because, and so that's why when we say when you can be on it anywhere you're at, that's what I mean. Like, you know, being part of our community is about you expressing your greatness, your brilliance, and not echoing mine or Shane's, because, you know, our stories are unique and our skill set's unique, and we're just really lucky to be in a place to facilitate people like you stepping into your power.
Thank you. I feel so honored to have gotten to share that by chance, right? And I got forced into it, and it's shaped, you know, my new trajectory of where my life is going, and it all stems from this course you guys built, right? I know we kind of alluded to it, and some of you may not have gone through Foundations or any of our courses by any means. Mike Fitch gave me shit. He goes, "When are you gonna stop saying we?" I was like, I don't know. He's like, you do it a lot, and I was like,
you're still a part of it, man.
You're part of it.
And but like, yeah, you guys built this amazing development course and this message, but it's hidden behind, we're gonna help you understand how to move a little bit better and how to swing these tools. When you're developing a course, like a 2-day seminar or 7 seminars, which we built in 4 years. How did you lay that out? How did you design that? Because you wanted to honor obviously courses you'd been doing, understand like how does it need to be laid out, but to define the message and get the pillars and get, you know, the application and still be valuable from a fitness standpoint for those who are just looking for it from that lens. How did you put all that into a 2-day course? I mean, obviously it's not just 2 days; it's like 20 hours. We'll be done by 6. No, we won't. We won't be done by 6. So yeah, how did you do that?
I hire Shane Heins. And then, you know, we take what the market wants and then the things that I find are the most important, plus the things that Shane will not do anything if it doesn't resonate with his heart and soul. Like literally won't do it at all. You know, like he'd quickly quit.
Are you trying to get him to do something?
No.
Is there something you want him to do he won't do for you?
I want him to rub my magic lamp. Rub that lamp more than one time. Get those 3 wishes.
We spend a lot of time together, guys.
Sorry,
a lot of time.
Sorry. I'm really shy. But the reality is those 3 things and the vision of our CEO and what it is just the same thing we've been talking about is kind of like what is it? What people are willing to pay for, what I'm good at. The intersection is where the magic happens. It's like taking in all these different perspectives and then being able to say like all these things have to fight for the time and space that we have, that we're borrowing somebody, that we have them, that they're investing days off and travel and food and hotel to be here. And how do we distill all those things into an experience that they can walk away from with layers of understanding? Because we try to be efficient. A lot of this stuff happens in the course of these 2 days. A lot of these conversations that we're just sitting here talking about happen as you're moving, like as you're going through the experience of doing the things that we would say the course is really about, right? Because nobody really goes to a fitness course to learn all this stuff. It's just fitness doesn't matter unless it's for something, right? And so they have to fight all the ideas, all of the concepts. And guess what? We continue to take courses, like you said, continue to bring to the surface like the value that people have brought us. You know, people like Mike Fitch or Andre Ospina or you know. Even Scott Hahn and Jarlo Elano and Ryan Hurst of GMB Fitness, man, those are some of our best mentors. You know, Ryan was mentoring us from Japan. He was in Canada, like, you know, north of the wall. And I was in Monterey, beautiful Monterey, California. And we would be up at god awful hours designing education courses because you know what, we were mentored to do that. And to be honest, it was really funny. And I look back at it, he was like, so what do you guys think we should do? You know, good mentorship is often facilitation and getting the heck out of the way of people that are hungry and creative and you know, it's funny to be able to see, like, you know, I'd love to take more credit for a lot of the amazing things that some of the coaches are doing. We just give them a framework and then we sit back and like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Go do that.
You should do that. You know, I totally think that that's a really great idea. Or have you thought about this? Mm-hmm. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. It's just a gentle bumpers and the more often than not, they're going to get a strike or they're going to pick up a spare. You know, and sometimes the bumpers are a little harder than others, but at the same time, like, man, it has to come from experience. It has to come from passion. It has to come from purpose, and it has to be a lot of trial and error. Like just like everything else in life, you know, there's no easy way to do it. And you have to have people you trust help.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for the courses specifically, because we also had the great benefit, as John says, you know, that we continue to learn from others and we continue to learn. And he mentioned earlier, the people that find this stuff tend to be seekers, the early adopters, they're the ones who are seeking. That's been our path, and we're always constantly seeking. That's of the 5 pillar principles that we talk about. It's number 2, search for truth. So if we have the 5, unity in diversity. Number 2, search for truth. Number 3, balance and harmony. Number 4, action is leadership. Number 5, give to empower. And if you take a moment and listen to those 5 pillar principles, you're probably going to hear a lot of what we've been talking about this whole podcast already. And that the seekers, and we are seekers ourselves, so we're always wanting to learn from others because we recognize that is how we will continue to grow and hear new perspectives and get new ideas as we're going through. And through the development of the courses that we have now, we've had the benefit of others being a part of that and being able to, you know, learn different perspectives and ideas from an Eric Milland and an Aaron Guyette and a Sarah Jameson and April Buchwald and Marcus Martinez. They got to be a part of this process as we were going through and continuing to grow and move on and perpetuate their message in the way that is most resonant with what they're doing. That doesn't, you know, change as paths cross and diverge and, you know, move in different directions. That doesn't change the impact of what every single person our entire lives has had on us and every single contribution that has been made to any one thing. I think like John said earlier about the martial arts, like every martial arts has been pieces of other martial arts all continuing to come together, and that it's how is it put together? And in the how is it put together, what is the why and the context for that particular delivery? And so for the delivery of the courses in the Onnit Academy fitness system is about, well, what is the through line and what is this process that helps people continue to develop? And coming from where we're at, where we're wanting to have people elevate, have people empowered to grow, and give them a framework. We keep talking about that. Give them a framework to then go, oh, okay, just a simple structure that supports their ability to plug in and have all of their own ideas and their own, well, what is my why? And how will I bring a certain perspective to the table? That the courses that we've got put together, they're structured in a way I think they have been influenced by what we have experienced through the fitness industry and what we have seen, where there are the haves and the have-nots. And this idea of the haves holding on to the haves, even if it's on an unconscious level, holding on to the have because that elevates them above the have-nots. And from a fitness standpoint, from a movement standpoint, a very simple example is the ability to move like this, the ability to move these tools like this, super sophisticated, the stuff that on Instagram gets the highest views, the highest likes, the eye candy. They're like, man, what is that? You know, what's going on? And it's not that we're opposed to that. We love that stuff. We've worked and developed our capacity to move in those ways as well. because we recognize that is our potential to the capacity that we have as human beings. We're just really strongly connected to wanting to help other people try and access that too.
Yeah.
We don't want the have-nots because there's too big a gap for them to figure out, well, how do I access my potential as a human being to be able to have that? So our process and the way the courses are laid out are really designed to give a clear, all right, cool. Well, if you have this and we were to break it down, it would be this, it would be this, it would be this, it would be this. So that as you're going through the course, there are times when people go, oh, this makes sense. Oh, this is really straightforward. Oh, actually, I forgot I knew this. And then getting to the end point and then our connecting the whole thing to, and this is how it all ties into. And they go, whoa, wait a second. We just walked the bridge over the gap. And now this isn't so intimidating. It isn't so far away. And that starts the process of, on a subconscious level, me as a human being has the opportunity to reach my highest potential and capacity as well, from the perspective of this physical body and the vehicle it serves to move us through our life. And that really is how the courses are designed.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a process of reverse engineering, right? So like, this is the reality of our world. Like, you get inspired by something. How do I get that? How do I attain it? You have to reverse engineer the process, right? And so, the process to make something, like something, a physical product, a good, a car, a piece of technology. If you understand the components of it, then you could potentially successfully reverse engineer that and get to a similar or identical outcome. Well, if we know where we want to go and you understand a process to reverse engineer from a foundational, like, I don't know how to do anything, and this is the process of coaching, and this is the process, the framework that we're trying to empower people through, is you could do all of this sexy, fancy, crazy stuff. You could do half of it. You could do all of it. You can stay right here at the front, because that's where half of the people you ever train are going to stay. And all of it is great. But the process of knowing how to get as far as you want to go, and knowing where you are, and knowing how to navigate that path successfully while mitigating risk, mitigating the potential for loss, mitigating potential for injury, successfully going through that process, enjoying the process, and then learning to be a good and successful guide for other people to go through that process is the premise of all of our courses. And hey, doesn't that sound like a good way to get somewhere from between here and, I don't know, some destination you want to go, here in some goal you have in life that isn't movement related, here in some financial goal? I don't know. That's been realistically, ideally, if the things you learn in our courses, if the things you practice in the gym stop being of value when you leave that environment, then you're not doing yourself the type of service that you deserve. And ideally, a lot of these messages are woven into the deliverables so that, if we talk about like neuroplasticity, like as you move, your brain becomes more susceptible to taking in information that it believes on a subconscious level. So as you are moving, if I'm your coach, I'm giving you words of not just encouragement, but empowerment, in recognition of your effort, of your commitment, of your dedication, of your potential, and of the progress that you've made. Because as you buy into believing that the best indicator of success is future success is success. And we just talked about perspective earlier. I was successful. I just didn't know it. A good coach is going to celebrate your successes with you and for you. If you don't know how to do it for yourself, they're going to teach you how to do that. And that's a big part of this process is linguistic programming. It's not NLP, but we borrow concepts from NLP or love, like motivational interviewing and other concepts of that empower through language, empower through movement, empower through belief systems, right? So yeah, and again, if you heard even just semblance of some of these things in this interview, I think it's really fun sitting here with Sam, because some of the things that Shane shared, I didn't really hear in that way before, or some of the things that we're talking about. Sam knows how to push our buttons because he spent 4 years with us. It may be more than you bargained for, maybe more than you want. Maybe some of this stuff will be stuff you want to hear 2 years from now. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you come to a course, it all is wrapped up in the physical practice. So you won't even hear it because you're going to be sweating your ass off trying to perform the most perfect squat you've ever performed in your life. And I'll be saying all of this stuff when you're going through the process. So you won't even know you heard it until like you go to sleep and you're like, I am powerful.
Yeah.
It's all subtext. And I implore you to go, not necessarily just buy into it from us, but go look at, NLP, motivational interviewing, and looking at how you the 5 love languages, understanding how other people receive praise, believe, love, and fulfillment. Look at, self-actualization, things like, mastery of self, if we're staying in that line of series, or one of my favorite books is The Untethered Soul, and look at a lot of these things that as you transcend how you perceive yourself and you empower other people to do it through the vehicle of fitness. It doesn't need to be cheesy, hokey. It's not just sitting here talking unless you have a group of people that want to talk about these things. You can weave it all in. And that's, like you said, how do you get all this stuff to sit in a 2-day course? It has to be folded in, like, what's the story? Like the difference between bread, you go to a bakery, there's bread, and then there's a croissant, right? So the croissant is like the samurai sword of bread, right? Because like a samurai sword is folded steel thousands of times to have this amazing edge that can withstand a lot of work, a lot of wear, and it's this folding process and this tempering process that really makes it something special in the eyes of artists, weapon artists, and even the consumers, who didn't want to be a ninja or samurai, as a young person that was into martial arts, at least, and then now the croissant, if you look at it, it's a rolled dough that they put a slab of butter in and they fold it over and put another slab of butter. And I'm a firm believer that butter makes it better. Butter makes it better. And so if it's this programming, this linguistic programming, this mental programming, this belief systems, they're folded into the process of the deliverable of fitness, the deliverable of the bread, the deliverable of fitness. It's just bread, or it's a croissant. It's just fitness, or it's a life-changing experience that empowers that individual.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've seen a little bit about where you guys have come from, a little bit of how it all kind of got put together and moving in this machine, right, that is Onnit now. And now we're about on another transition. And not just because I left, but because now Onnit's moving in a new direction and the education system is now in a different spot than where it was 4 years ago. What's coming next, not only for you guys, but what's coming next for Onnit and fitness, and where are you guys taking this?
Well, I think as has been talked about earlier, there's this sense of coming to Onnit, the idea of, well, if I just get to Onnit and I work for you guys, like, it'll be hunky dory. I've made it too, and as all of us here at this table can attest to, it's great to have a platform to be able to make a greater impact. The work has not changed. So the work that we were doing before, late nights and long weekends and all of that still has been going on. That still happens now, because the soil is so fertile here, that now we feel an even greater sense of responsibility to, like, oh, okay, we need to make sure we're doing all we can to make the most out of what this has the potential for, and the most that we have the potential to contribute to, all of everyone that this resonates with and connects with and contributes to their journeys. And so I think in that sense of building out and continuing to grow and to deepen, we've been talking about connectivity and community, whether you're here in Austin, Texas, or from afar, that the recognition of more people being able to access this is really important. And so this has been a part of the vision from the beginning, but has taken time for us to get to the point where we can now start implementing and having the resources to put towards that direction, which is getting the courses online and starting to move in that direction, where it's actually not just the courses, but we've already started delivering online in terms of a at-home fitness program, Onnit 6. So for anybody that hasn't had an opportunity to experience this, we have John in there with some amazing models that are demonstrating the same thing that we do in anything that we do, which is a process of being able to build and access potential, level 1, level 2, level 3. And these models that are working and focusing on those roles to help the people at home work their way over the course of 6 weeks and repeated, and being able to come back and dive in at different layers and different levels. So that's a really easy access point right now. Someone doesn't even have to come to a course to experience what it is we're delivering. You can get Onnit 6 and start to have that feel, start to use the vehicle of fitness as a means to connect a little more on what it is that we're doing. Of course, we dive deeper in that in the courses, and that's what we're working on now, is getting the courses online so that folks, not just limited by being those who can or will make that investment to come here, to come to one of the courses, but to be able to do it from home. And I'm excited about that because it is a lot. We've alluded to it's a lot in 2 days, and it is an experience. And the experience is something that's hard to translate in a digital format, but that's something that we're also working on, is how can we get this sense of belief, this sense of the message of what we want people to have a sense of in terms of what we're bringing to the world. And if it resonates with them, what they can continue to give to other people is... But something that I'm excited about is being able to have the course stretched over more time, where we can give folks a timeline of like, hey, take 8 weeks. Here's this first component. Here's what we're working on. Here's assignments to get a little better and work. We've already shown and proven that we can get people within a 48-hour period to improve exponentially in a short period of time. This just helps those at home to be able to then absorb it in a way that they can then translate it to other people. And that's the whole idea, is for us to be able to continue to do that. And in doing that, that then opens up the space for us to be able to start doing deeper dives. You know, there are other ways of taking in information. I think something that is becoming more popular now, not just in terms of application from business standpoint, but from people who choose how to take their information, retreats, summits, these extended multi-day events that once we have courses online, it opens up space for us to be able to then look at doing some of those down the road and being able to provide. And we have, for the people who have been coming through the courses for the past 4 years, and those who have come to all the courses and have been applying and saying, all right, I'm ready for the next thing. Like, where are we going with this? I think that's an exciting prospect for us over the next couple of years as we develop these things out, because then it will give us the opportunity in this space to help further even more those who have gained a great value from going through this with us and want to continue to gain whatever it is that we can continue to contribute in that way. So that, you know, from the fitness side of things is a step in the direction that we're moving as the next thing, because it is, how can we continue to impact people's lives and just keep opening up those concentric circles of what that means? Because we know the people who have come through the courses so far, amazing individuals.
Yeah.
And to whatever degree, you don't have to be on a primal soldier level. There are different degrees of, like John was talking about, success. There are different degrees of what it means to have made an impact in someone's life. And sometimes it's not on a public forward-facing platform.
Yeah.
That doesn't diminish what the success is. And so in recognizing that and really being filled after every cert, I'm always so filled both by the opportunity to be of service to those, but also to hear what it means to those individuals to have had that experience and to have that as a part of their journey.
Yeah.
To recognize, oh, well, there are 7 billion other people out of amazing individuals out there that we have no idea what they will contribute in their way through their perspective. And so this is the next natural evolution to move towards, which means there's a lot of work, isn't there?
We only average working 40 weekends a year for the last 4 years.
Yep.
Yeah, and back in the office for 5 days.
Yeah.
Shane just taught, 2 10-hour days over the weekend and is here, and then we're gonna go to the office, and so the outside looking in looks a lot different than when you look behind the curtain. There's no discounting the fact that whether you do it on your own or you do it in our office, no matter what, there's just a lot of work to do. Work starts with you, and then the individuals that you impact is, Shane talked about country, the world and the countries and the states or provinces and the counties and the cities and the neighborhood, the family, individual, right? So like you touch one person, you start that ripple in the pond, and success could be changing one person's life is a huge success, and changing your life is where we want you to start, right? So no matter where you're experiencing some success, just learn to celebrate it and help us celebrate it with you, or allow us to, if we can play a part in it, if we can play a role, if anything we teach ends up being something that empowers you, man, we really want to know. We really want to hear your success story, because we live to serve, and in that way, our cup is filled. So yeah, that's hopefully with all the things that Shane talked about. There's a lot of other things that are a little hush hush, but besides that, it's just all set up to make the information more accessible, give you more time to go through iterations of understanding it, to be able to go back and review it, to be able to implement it with people, to see the impact not only on yourself, with others, and then an easy way to share those wins with a community of like-minded people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, guys, I hopefully, as you guys find this podcast and learn about these guys, and you can see that, like, man, I feel so blessed that I was able to bear the fruits of these guys' relationship and grow, and now move on to develop the Fitness Break Room podcast, move on to True Coach, and and be a testament to like what this has become, and then continue to shine in a way that still supports and honors the journey that I came from. And it's so special for me to come back to Austin a month later to be able to do a podcast with these guys together and to share that story. And I debated whether I wanted to do individual or together. And honestly, I think the cohesion between the two of you really gives a good feel for everybody who might look to what Onnit can do for them and where they're at in their journeys. And I think it's so special to be able to share that. So thank you guys for sharing that time with me. And it's an incredible, huge honor to step out and hopefully make you guys proud for the rest of my career. Going forward, where can people find or stalk you guys? Not that either of you love electronic communication by any means, but if they wanted to get an insight as to what you do on a regular basis, how would people find you? Not email, find, see, observe.
Yeah, of course, check us out at onnit.com/academy. Check out all of the Onnit products, Onnit 6. More and more content pieces will be made available on the public facing side of that blog as well. But besides that, you can check me out on Instagram at Coach John Wolf. Actually, I've been a little bit more active there, and I have the commitment to continue to do so. If not for fitness related content, to at least show pictures of my beautiful kids on a more regular basis, so you see that hey, you know what? It's a balancing act between all the things that are the most important.
Yeah, and from my end, as John said, check out onnit.com, check out onnit.com/academy, and the continued content that will be coming out, especially over this next year, that's starting to ramp up from a fitness standpoint. We have the opportunity with Onnit to live in a ton of different realms, and from a fitness standpoint, there's going to be more of that coming forward. And so great content to be able to access and start seeing how this all fits in on a personal level. Instagram, you can look up Shane Heins, my name, and that will be probably the one and only place, at least for the next long while.
That's not true. Shane's helping architect the ongoing rebirth of the Onnit Academy Instagram as well. So
Yes.
So you could see a lot of what's going on, a lot of things that we're talking about, and a lot of amazing people within the community coming to contribute more content on the Onnit Academy Instagram. So Instagram.com/Onnit Academy.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me. You guys just taught and have a brand new baby, so I appreciate getting a good chunk of your guys' time today. But it's been awesome to be able to share this time and space with you, and looking forward to doing it again.
Great. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks again for listening to the Fitness Break Room podcast, everybody. You can follow us on Instagram at Fitness Break Room. And then you can even subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and leave us a review if you're digging what we're bringing you. That would be awesome and very helpful. Okay, guys, have a beautiful week. Stay strong and always look out for the little guy.